Throughout my years of studying the human psyche, I have observed a profound pattern that Dostoevsky captured with remarkable clarity. The tendency of men to pour their vital energy into building kingdoms for others while allowing their own inner castle to crumble into dust. This pattern represents not merely a social phenomenon, but a deep archetypal struggle within the masculine psyche. Dostoevsky understood that man is a creature who gets used to everything, including the slow erosion of his own spirit through misguided sacrifice. This sacrifice is not born of genuine love, but of a distorted anima projection and a fundamental misunderstanding of one's relationship to the collective unconscious. The psychological mechanism at work follows a tragic circular pattern. The man, often unconsciously seeking to resolve childhood wounds around worthiness, attempts to earn love through perpetual giving. He surrenders his boundaries, his resources, his time, his very identity, all to upgrade another's existence, while his own life force diminishes. This represents not healthy relatedness, but a form of psychological inflation, where the man abandons his authentic self to become merely an extension of another's desires. The shadow side of this behavior reveals itself not in obvious darkness, but disguised as virtue. The noble provider, the selfless partner, the man who puts everyone else first. Yet beneath this persona lies a profound self-betrayal. The psychic cost of living for external validation creates what I would call a fragmentation of the self. The more a man seeks approval from outside, the more disconnected he becomes from his inner authority. This disconnection from the self leads to precisely what Dostoevsky observed when he wrote, "The man who lies to himself and listens to his own lie comes to a point where he does not discern any truth either in himself or anywhere around him." The man trapped in this pattern develops a false relationship not only with others, but with his own soul. The collective symbols of masculine strength, the warrior, the king, the magician, the lover, become mere external performances rather than integrated aspects of his psyche. The wake-up call comes not through gentle awakening, but through painful confrontation with the shadow of wasted potential, with the unlived life that haunts him from the periphery of consciousness. Section 1. The prison you built. You construct your own cage brick by brick, each sacrifice another bar in the prison that eventually confines your spirit. This self-built captivity begins almost imperceptibly, a small compromise here, an abandoned dream there. A gradual erosion of boundaries that seems noble in the moment. Perhaps you pay for everything, handle all responsibilities, or surrender your own ambitions to support hers. Each individual act appears loving, but the cumulative effect creates a fundamental imbalance that destroys authentic connection. You believe you're building a relationship, but you're actually constructing elaborate walls that separate you from genuine intimacy. Dostoevsky recognized this pattern when he wrote about men who perform like fools, building kingdoms where they hold no crown. The most insidious aspect of this self-constructed prison is that you hold the key yet refuse to use it, having convinced yourself that your captivity is somehow virtuous or necessary. They sense the underlying motivation behind your excessive giving, even when you don't. Women can distinguish between genuine love and the desperate need for approval that drives most male self-sacrifice. Authentic love flows from abundance and maintains healthy boundaries. Approval-seeking behavior stems from scarcity and abandons all limits. This distinction explains why increasing your sacrifice often decreases her respect. She instinctively recognizes that your giving isn't free, but comes with the unspoken expectation of emotional compensation. The bitter realization usually arrives too late, after years of investing in someone else's reality while neglecting your own. You wake up one day surrounded by a life you helped build but don't belong in, a kingdom where you serve but don't rule, a home where everything bears your fingerprints yet nothing reflects your essence. The psychological damage extends far beyond the relationship itself. When you abandon yourself to secure another's approval, you destroy the very foundation of respect, both self-respect and the respect others can offer you. This paradox confuses many men. The more you erase yourself to please someone, the less they can genuinely respect you. Your willingness to compromise everything communicates not devotion but desperation, not strength but weakness. Beneath this pattern lies a profound unconscious fear, not simply fear of abandonment, but fear of existence itself. You dread the responsibility of creating your own meaning, of standing firmly in your own authority, of facing the vast silence of self-determination. As Dostoevsky observed, many men would rather live in organized hell than face the anxiety of uncharted freedom. Your excessive sacrifice isn't noble. It's an elaborate avoidance mechanism that protects you from the terrifying responsibility of authentic selfhood. But what happens when this carefully constructed prison finally crumbles, and you're forced to confront the ghost of the man you could have been? Section 2. The ghost of your potential. Each time you postpone your ambitions to pursue hers, each time you silence your needs to address hers, you withdraw a little more from your authentic self. This withdrawal isn't dramatic, but incremental, like water slowly eroding stone, leaving only the faint outline of what once existed. Your personal identity becomes increasingly hollow, a shell that performs the functions of living without actually experiencing life's depth. You wake up one day and barely recognize the man in the mirror, not because you've changed, but because you've gradually disappeared. Dostoevsky captured this phenomenon perfectly. The man who lies to himself loses all respect for himself, and having no respect, he can no longer love. The emptiness creates a paradoxical resentment. Outwardly, you maintain the role of the supportive partner, but inwardly, bitterness grows, like a shadow stretching across your soul. You resent her for accepting what you freely gave. You resent yourself for giving what you couldn't afford to lose. Most painfully, you resent the ghost of your potential that haunts you in quiet moments, the man you might have become had you invested in your own kingdom. They instinctively recognize the difference between a man driven by purpose and one desperate for validation. When you make a woman's dreams your primary focus while neglecting your own, you create a fundamental imbalance that triggers unconscious disrespect. This isn't malicious, it's a natural psychological response to perceived weakness. Women aren't attracted to neediness because it signals evolutionary vulnerability. A man without his own mission becomes a liability rather than an asset. Your constant availability, your excessive accommodation, your willingness to abandon your path. These don't register as love, but as deficiency. Dostoevsky observed that a man who kneels too quickly kneels too often, understanding that excessive deference destroys the very respect it attempts to earn. The awakening to wasted potential usually comes through crisis. Perhaps she leaves despite your sacrifices. Perhaps she stays but grows increasingly dissatisfied. Or perhaps you simply can't ignore the growing emptiness anymore. Suddenly, you confront years of missed opportunities, undeveloped talents, and abandoned dreams. You realize that in trying to become indispensable to someone else, you've become a stranger to yourself. But this painful awakening, while excruciating, contains the seeds of rebirth. If you're willing to face the daunting task of rebuilding from the ashes of your former self. Section 3. Rebuild from the ashes. First step toward authentic rebirth comes when you finally stop running from the silence. That uncomfortable void, the one you've been filling with her needs, with constant doing, with the noise of perpetual sacrifice, contains the raw material of your resurrection. Sit with it. Let it speak to you. Dostoevsky understood this moment when he wrote, "The darker the night, the brighter the stars." Your darkest moment of self-confrontation is precisely where your genuine strength begins to emerge. This isn't comfortable work. Your mind will create 1,000 distractions, 100 rationalizations, dozens of reasons to return to the familiarity of self-erasure. But reclaiming personal power requires facing this discomfort directly. Begin by identifying what Dostoevsky called your suffering with purpose. Not the meaningless suffering of self-abandonment, but the meaningful challenge of building something that belongs entirely to you. What dreams did you set aside? What talents have you neglected? What mission resonates in your bones when all external validation falls away? Write it down, speak it aloud. Start taking small, concrete actions toward it daily, not for her approval, not for external validation, but because it represents your authentic path. They respond differently to a man driven by internal purpose versus one desperate for external validation. When you break the addiction to approval, relationships transform accordingly. Start with these specific actions. First, establish clear boundaries around your time, energy, and resources. Practice saying no without excessive explanation or apology. Second, deliberately pursue at least one significant goal that has nothing to do with romantic relationships or others' approval. Third, identify your validation-seeking behaviors, constantly checking her responses, excessive apologizing, abandoning your position in disagreements, and consciously interrupt these patterns. Fourth, rebuild your male friendships and pursuits, creating areas of your life that don't revolve around your romantic relationship. Fifth, practice sitting with disapproval without rushing to fix it. This builds the psychological muscle of self-authorization. As you implement these changes, you'll likely face resistance, both internal and external. Old patterns don't die easily. The people accustomed to your excessive giving may react negatively when you begin reclaiming yourself. This isn't evidence you're doing something wrong. It's confirmation that you're disrupting an unhealthy system. Dostoevsky noted, "Taking a new step, uttering a new word, is what people fear most." The transformation from provider without purpose to man with mission requires this courage, the willingness to face temporary discomfort for lasting authenticity. If the greatest gift you could offer those you love isn't your self-erasure, but the example of a man fully alive in his purpose,